Dude, you all right?
Yeah, man, I'm great, man. Get another beer.
All right. This Father's Day, badlandsmedia.tv/manly cans. Get yours. Dad'll love it. Dad'll love it. What's up, bro?
I got something on my chest. I gotta get off.
Oh no. What do you got to get off your chest?
Bro, everyone in the live chat. All right. We gotta go like this to CannCon, okay? Gotta go.
Oh my
People are depending on it.
I wasn't even late, bro. This little
Oh,
wow.
yes, it is.
Man.
Is
Okay, I do have the mute on this, and he can't unmute himself. I wasn't even late, homie. You were 40 minutes late. I wasn't even 40 seconds late. What a dick, bro. I mean, you were like literally 40 minutes late to a show. Huh?
never happened.
It did happen.
No, you're gaslighting us right now.
I am. I'm totally gaslighting. Alpha was never 40 minutes late, guys. That's not a running joke with everybody in the chat about Alpha being late. So, all right, guys, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. And let's get into the news. Unfortunately, we now have names to put and faces to put with the 8 folks that were killed in the B-52 crash the other day. And, when this first happened, Alpha, I looked at the wreckage and was like, wow, that's really weird. Not saying anything conspiratorial, but that's just really weird. Like there's nothing left except a black spot on the tarmac, on the runway, where this B-52 crashed. And let's go ahead and dive into this because I think this needs to be looked at.
100%.
The fallen team from the fallen Team Edwards members are Colonel Gregory Watson, 53, Weapons Systems Officer, Boeing. Okay. He was an Air Force reservist assigned to the 10th Air Force Naval Air Station. So the Boeing there in italics means that he was working for Boeing. I don't think he was there in his capacity necessarily as a colonel in the U.S. Air Force.
I agree.
Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Estrella, 40, weapons officer, Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center, Detachment 5 from Edwards. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Miles Middleton, 50. He was a pilot from Boeing. Major Alexander Davis, 34, weapons system officer from the 419th Flight Test Squadron. That is actually based out of Edwards. Major Robert D., 40, pilot from the 419th. Major Brad Hovey, 35, pilot, 419th. Jeremy Smith, 32, flight test engineer from the 419th. And then Christopher Risher, who was a flight test engineer, a JT4 contractor. So you've got, it looks like 1, 2, 3 contractors. Okay. 1, 2, 3 contractors. One of them is a reservist. One of them is a retired lieutenant colonel. The other one's a civilian with no military designation whatsoever. Now, the story, Alpha, is that they were testing updated radar equipment, like updating the radar equipment on this B-52, which has been flown since the 50s. I mean, this is an ancient aircraft. The report says that this one, I believe it says that this one was modernized to accommodate, the testing and everything else like that, where they test new equipment on the B-52. But I mean, look, again,
Can I add a fact to this story for you?
Sure.
Regarding the dynamics of the crash portion, because obviously Edwards Air Force Base is not very far from me, and this caught my attention, especially when, for those that don't know, we're talking a B-52 Stratosphere. This thing's got 4 huge engines on it, huge, and that right out of the gate caught my attention because I'm like, you can have an engine failure, 2 engine failures on this thing, and this bird can still fly. In addition to that, just based off people I know from the past, these teams know how to crash these big things with finesse. These are like phenomenal crews. And one of the things that caught my attention here, and I wanted to see, well, how, what's this number look like compared to other stuff? So here's the stats for you guys. This thing was up in the air for just over 3 minutes,
3 minutes.
The last maneuver on radar that we have is that it was doing a 180-degree turn. And then all of a sudden, what happens next is this thing starts to descend at 5,056 feet per minute. So just almost about a mile a minute. Now, to put that in reference, because this is where I was like, well, where does that line up with normal? That is 10 times faster than the normal descending speed for one of these types of birds. So, I mean, if that's the case, was this thing freaking nose diving?
Does it say what altitude it was at?
It did. Well, it had the last known altitude. Let me see if I can go back and find that.
It's 3 minutes of flight for these things. They have a very slow climb rate. You know,
Yeah.
they're not like, you know, even like
They ain't pitching up.
right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But still, and when you look at the crash spot right there, it's like there's nothing left, dude.
That's what that's the biggest shock for me is
It's ash, dude. So, I mean, the descent that why would this thing be nosediving? Because essentially, that if you're doing that kind of speed, you know, 10 times faster than a normal descent speed, uh, and you're nosediving, I don't know, man. This thing just something don't smell right here, man. Especially given the fact that it was a test crew.
well, I'd want to know the speed that it got up to because I mean,
Let me
you
see.
know,
I had found that. So let me grab that for you.
descending at 5,000 feet per minute. I mean, that's not really that. It's a fast descent, but I mean, in comparison on speed, it'd be like the equivalent of going like 60 miles an hour down the highway.
Yeah, that's 10 times the speed.
What would be the rate of fall on like if it were free falling? Like if it just cut out completely and was just in a complete free fall. I wonder what so again, these are technicalities that we're not in any way, shape, or form qualified to talk about. But the whole thing just is weird, man. And the thing, like the second I saw this, I was like, bro, where there's no fuselage, there's no fuselage, there's no aircraft engines, there's no wings that broke away, nothing. It's just poof, gone. Now who knows? Maybe this is footage long after they came in and removed some of these parts. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Heart goes out to that crew, man.
Absolutely. And having three contractors on. And now granted, this is stateside and they're out there testing new technologies and all that stuff. But, this is the B-52 is the one plane in our arsenal that can carry everything, like literally everything.
Well, here's an update. As I wanted to go look for it this comes from Aerotime, and it says they corrected it because they're the ones that made the initial mistake. Aerotime fixed initial path accounts. The B-52 Stratus Fortress, did not turn. It crashed immediately along the runway. This occurred at Edwards Air Force Base. Let me see if I can grab this whole article.
It crashed immediately along the runway, and it was 3 minutes. Now, granted, I understand these things can take a solid minute to get up in the air, but 3 minutes in.
So this is being reported again by Aerotime. Stephen Pope. This is 22 hours ago. New details emerge in B-52 crash at Edwards Air Force Base that killed 8. Fresh details are emerging about the final moments of a fatal B-52 Stratofortress crash at Edwards Air Force Base on June 15, 2026, with officials confirming that all 8 people aboard were killed and that the bomber was supporting a radar modernization test mission. The aircraft crashed shortly after takeoff from Edwards at about 11:20 local time. The base initially said the aircraft was on routine flight test mission and the crash was not survivable. Colonel James Hayes, deputy commander of the 412th Test Wing at Edwards, later confirmed that all 8 people aboard were dead. Quote, Edwards Air Force Base experienced a horrible tragedy and we lost 8 great Americans, Hayes said during a news conference. The crew included uniformed military personnel, which you covered already. I'm not going to go through their names. B-52 was conducting a test mission tied to the bomber's radar modernization program, Hayes said. The Air Force is replacing the B-52's old radar with an active electronically scanned array system as part of a broader effort to keep the bomber in service into the 2050s. Boeing, this goes into the radar. Initial reports based on flight tracking data that suggested that the aircraft may have been airborne for 3 minutes and turned back towards the runway, but that account appears to have been based on erroneous flight tracking data. According to corrected accounts, the B-52 took off from Edwards towards the southwest, flew straight, and crashed almost immediately on the same 15,000-foot runway. The compact wreckage suggested the aircraft dropped sharply. The cause of the crash remains unknown. Officials have said the investigation will take several months.
Okay, so this account that you just talked about is even more bizarre. Because at least, like, if the plane got up in the air and was coming down and hit at a certain angle, you could understand a consolidated crash site like we saw in the video. But it still doesn't explain why there's no wreckage whatsoever. This is like the field in Pennsylvania, right? In 9/11.
It's weird because am I understanding this right? It's saying that it took off. It's on the same runway. It does its climb, and then it just
went straight down
onto the runway.
Right. And if that's the case, I mean, there's got to be debris that would, because that's not taking a speedy approach down where you got some momentum behind it. This sounds more like it just fell out of the air. And if you've ever watched
this sounds like the FedEx plane, the UPS plane that crashed a few weeks ago. It got caught on camera. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Clipped the truck. Yeah.
No. There's one that it's taking off. And as it's taking off, and then it just crashes right into the warehouses right outside the airport.
No, I didn't see that one, but
again, even that thing is not traveling with the power that this B-52 is, and that still was enough to get it past the runway. And again, I'm no aeronautics guy or anything like that. I don't know my head from my ass when it comes to this stuff, but it just. This general, physics doesn't seem to like make sense here.
Yeah, man. I just, if something were to, if it didn't come in at a steep angle at a high speed, I can't imagine there not being a lot of debris. But all right, it is what it is. We'll find out more, man.
I got a bone to pick real quick in the audience.
Oh no,
what the world's going on here? The whistleblower's story says CannCon. Wishing your family peace this weekend.
Oh, I have a funeral for my stepdad on.
Okay. I was just like, wait, hello.
Yeah. I got
it here too. But okay.
All right. Let's get into the big news. The big news of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Here we have it. President Trump signing the deal, the memorandum of understanding to end the U.S.-Iran war. Check it out.
Yes. Bravo. Good job. Great job. Bravo.
Now the timing is peculiar. Signing it at a dinner with all the G7 leaders and all the other leaders that aren't part of the G7 but were somehow invited and sitting in on this dinner. Emmanuel Macron sitting right next to him. All of the European leaders who have been railing on Trump for this war and the gas prices that they're suffering from. And I'll tell you what, man, I was reading the deal last night. I was reading it this morning to highlight it for the show as well. This deal is going to make huge strides for Europe and the United States, and it's going to be detrimental to China. But on that note, the timing of it, a lot of people were out there saying, June 19th. Ooh, that's a Delta that mentions Iran, which is interesting. And then he ends up turning around and signing it 2 days early on the 17th. So maybe it's a super Delta, right? Because the original was the 19th, right? No, anyways. Any comments on the meeting in which they signed this?
Not the meeting, although I agree with you. Doing it at the G7 was a flex. I mean, it's Trump, bro. 100%. With regarding this peace deal, the fact that Trump went out there and publicly said, "I want to thank and make sure to mention President Putin of Russia and Xi of China for helping this peace deal develop." I just want to say, I told you so.
Oh yeah.
And that is definitely going to be a precursor, because I said this then, I say it now. This is a precursor to Trump is going to invite both those countries. With Russia, he already did. So I think this is going to, now we're looking at them actually coming on to be a part of the Board of Peace, aka the Sovereign Alliance.
Yeah, the Board of Peace. I think almost all of us here at Badlands since the beginning have been saying that it's going to be the replacement for the United Nations, and it's Trump's replacement. And even after, if Trump leaves in 2028, he's going to be the head of the Board of Peace, even then after, which, from, so Russia
World
and China.
commander, bro.
Yeah.
This is, give them those little patches and just put globes on or flat earths. I don't want to offend people.
Well, they are flat earths, technically. They're not going to be round globes. I've never seen a rank insignia that's three-dimensional. So it is going to be a flat earth.
There you go. There you go.
But so even when the Board of Peace first rolled out for the Gaza, plan, Russia didn't join immediately. Neither did China. But Russia gave, I think, $2 billion to the Board of Peace. They donated $2 billion to the effort. And again, when everybody else was signing on, I think the consensus at the time was that Russia and China will come aboard in due time, and when they do, it will be a remarkable event. It's not going to be something that's watered down with everybody else that's joining. The Sovereign Alliance, the U.S., Russia, China. You can bring in the other factions, NBS. Maybe down in Brazil, you got all over the place. When you bring all of these countries together, China and Russia get their own ceremonial inductions. And we got, there's a little bit of evidence of that potentially occurring in the actual memorandum of understanding. You have a big grin on your face.
This is good stuff, man.
Oh, okay. So let's read through this. And again, most of today's show, guys, is going to be about this war in some form or fashion. We're going to go through. I'm going to show you exactly how Trump told us that this was going to play out.
Well, before you start reading, then let me just remind everybody of one more thing to what you said with the initial investment that every country has to do into the Board of Peace. And Putin said right out of the gate, "Hey, I've got no problem paying that. Just take it out of the frozen accounts that you've done for us." So again, from the very beginning, you could tell that there's a pathway to get to this, because remember the meeting between Trump and Putin that took place in Alaska. What was it? April, August of last year, when they met, where everybody was talking about building the tunnel from Alaska. At that same time, there was something significant that happened. I just want to real quick play this into the relationship that's developing here. During that meeting of Trump and Putin, you had, I think it was 2 or 3 of these ships that started to set sail to the area of the Indian Sea, the Persian Gulf, Southeast Asia, started to set direction out there. The following day and the day after, another 2 or 3. It was a total of like 6 or 7 ships that started heading that way. Now, the interesting thing that was documented at the time was they had no contracts. So these ships, and if you guys are not familiar with the size of these things, these are cities floating on the water. They are massive. So they start heading out that direction with no contract to drop a payload or pick up a payload, make money, nothing. And that's kind of what caught a lot of people's attention. Now we fast forward to this. Remember, there's no conflict going on between us and Iran. No one's even talking about one. Everything's good, right? We're laying waste to everybody else at the time. Then all of a sudden, we have these combat operations, aka war, that break off in the Middle East. And what happens during the time of the Strait of the Hormuz ordeal? Trump relaxes the sanctions for oil for Russia. And then what hits the news at that time from RT and a few other places?
Cuba.
Well, Russia. Well, no. Before this is still sticking to the area of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Russia comes out and says, "Oh, thank you. We just happen to have some ships in the area at this time."
Oh,
Now,
okay, that's what you're saying.
Now you can write that off to coincidence, or you can write that off to all the way back to early last year. Trump and Putin knew exactly what was going to pop off in the Middle East with Iran, which gave this opportunity so where Russia wouldn't get flexed on and could capitalize and have an advantage and have these ships that are ready there to get the oil to go make business with it. Now that's significant for two reasons. One, it shows the relationship between Trump and Putin, which I agree with you. Everybody at Badlands is pretty much we all agree in unison on this one with the Sovereign Alliance. But the second part that's very important, it also means that Israel didn't dictate this war or create it. It means that all the way back then, Trump already knew what was going to pop off. And this is why that whole arrangement was made with Putin. That this again gives credence to Israel had nothing to do with telling Trump to do this. That Trump always knew. It absolutely shares that.
It does not prove that. All that proves is that they had the foresight to know that this was going to be something that was expedited. And that's what the argument has been all along, is that this has been expedited by the U.S. because they knew that an Israeli attack was imminent.
If we know Trump, nobody...
When were the Russian ships sent out?
It was either April or August of last year.
April or August of last year.
I'll look it up for you right now.
That
was when the Alaska meeting was. So give me 1 second, I'll tell you.
So that was after Operation Midnight Hammer.
It depends which one. Let me see.
No, both of them.
No.
You said August or what?
Or April.
Oh, April would not have been before because Midnight Hammer was June 2025.
Did Trump meet Putin, Alaska? Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin met in Alaska on August 15th of 2025.
So it was after Midnight Hammer.
Let me see when
it was after Trump rolled Netanyahu out to do the ritual of saying that Iran cannot make a nuclear weapon.
Correct. You're correct, because Midnight Hammer was in June.
Right. And so this very well could have been, it's not conclusive one way or the other is the point that I'm trying to make here. Midnight Hammer, when Trump performed Operation Midnight Hammer, I've said this before, the first person to come out and acknowledge that Iran's nuclear infrastructure has been set back 20 years or whatever the case might be, indefinitely, was Netanyahu. Netanyahu was the first person that came out and said that. And I think that was that was deliberate. I think that was deliberate that Trump made him come out and acknowledge that first, because then when they used that narrative, and then what did the narrative shift to almost immediately? Well, Iran has intercontinental ballistic missiles. They have ICBMs.
Then again, it still proves the point, because when Trump starts Operation Epic Fury, he doesn't do it until Putin's ships are in position.
Putin's ships in position from August all the way till when did it start? February?
I think it was February.
February 28th. February 28th.
Yeah. No, I don't think it was that late. I think it was a little bit. It was the end of February. It was the end of February. I don't know if it was the last day.
It was the last day. It was February 28th.
And then Trump does come out and say on Operation Epic Fury, if anything, I'm the one that made Beefy respond, because he didn't say that in the first one, but he did say that in the second one.
Perhaps, perhaps maybe those ships were being moved around because they foresaw, that something was going to happen in that region and that there was going to be oil shortages. And, Trump coming out and saying, we moved hundreds of millions of barrels of oil out of Hormuz and nobody knew about it. I'm breaking news, right?
22 ships, like 200 million barrels.
Right. He said that like a week ago. And so when you see kind of him come out and say, hey, the oil's been moving this whole time. Russia had all this oil moved beforehand, and again, one of the things, the reason I said Cuba is because Cuba has been, they've been saying there's power outages in Cuba. Well, Trump allowed a Russian sanctioned ship to come into Cuba and give them oil. And this was back around that same time, probably around August or so. And just recently, like within the last month, Trump and Besant lifted the sanctions, or lifted the restrictions, the license restrictions on the Russian tankers to allow them to disperse oil to needy countries. And I think Cuba was one of them. We haven't heard this yet.
Interesting with that. Cuba was one of them.
Yeah.
And Russia had a ship going on their way there.
Right.
And with the sanctions lifted, that Russian ship did a U-turn.
Really?
And this was what, a week or two ago?
Yeah, this was recently. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had checked it for a few days to see if there was an update on why it turned around, and there was no update. But a Russian ship that was on its way there with the sanctions lifted just said, "Nah, bro."
You still can't convince me. I'm still not convinced that this wasn't the Leroy Jenkins moment on February 28th. I still believe it was. I still also believe that Trump would have gone this route if he had to, but I don't think he was there yet. And, I did this show back in February, the Saturday after it happened. And I said, hey, dude, look at this. Kushner and Witkoff were with Aragchi in Vienna, or no, excuse me, in Oman, or was it Qatar? It was one or the other, but they were meeting with the Iranians. They had the IAEA representative there as well. He was kind of like the negotiator, or the overseer, right? The moderator, so to speak. And he had come out and said that the negotiations went well. Now, they were still a long way from getting anywhere, to a final deal, but they were moving along to the point where they had another meeting set up for the Monday. So the first strike happened Friday night. They had another meeting set up already for that Monday between Kushner, Witkoff, Aragchi, and all these individuals. And that's when the strike happened. And again, I still believe that the United States preemptively did it. Now, again, I think a lot of what we've heard reported over there is not entirely true in terms of destruction and everything else. I think there's a lot of psychological warfare that's, propaganda, wartime propaganda, right? The first casualty of war is truth.
It was always going to happen. It was always going to happen under Trump's control, because this was literally the only way you get to publicly and formally establish the sovereign alliance. There's no other formula where you can make that happen, and people are like, okay, this is something that's good.
So let's get in, because trust me, when we get to Trump's words in the past, it's going to be very clear what's going on right now. But let's get into the memorandum of understanding. The United States of America, hereby known as America, and the Islamic Republic of Iran, hereby known as Iran, that's my own words, and their allies. All right. So America and Iran and their allies, very interesting, in the current war are signing this MOU to declare the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon, and undertake from now on not to initiate any war or any military operation against each other, and to refrain from the threat or use of force against each other, and ensuring the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. Very interesting. Lebanon gets a direct mention there. The final deal will confirm the permanent termination of the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon, and other provisions of this paragraph. Now, the Lebanon part is particularly interesting because that is a direct reference to Israel, right? Because Israel and Hezbollah and all of that stuff. You know who was not a signer to this document? There's two people that signed it. There's two people that signed it. Trump, and we'll get into the second one here in a minute, because that's interesting in and of itself. Israel was not a signer to this memorandum of understanding. Yeah. In fact, they didn't even know about it.
They're very interesting. Lebanon and Israel were not part of this formally.
Well, we're going to get into Lebanon too. And this is something me and Ghost have talked about in the past. And I did found some interesting things about Lebanon and the United States. But number two, America and Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. Remember that, number two, when I play the clips from about a year ago. Number three, the two parties commit to negotiating and achieving the final deal in a maximum of 60 days, extendable with mutual consent. Number four, by the way, calling it now, that's going to extend. It's not going to be done in 60 days. It's not going to be done in 60 days, but everything that's going under the temporary MOU is going to be excellent. Number four, immediately upon signing, America will begin the removal of its naval blockade and any disturbances or impediments against Iran. I thought that was very interesting. Just that little add that little addition there, Alpha. Any disturbances or impediments against Iran, almost like we have, I don't know, warfare discombobulator type techniques that, maybe we're not privy to in the public, but maybe not. Could just also be sanctions and all that stuff. America will remove its forces from the proximity of Iran within 30 days of the final deal. Iran will make arrangements for the safe passage of commercial vessels at no charge for 60 days only. Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultanate of Oman to define the future administration of maritime services in the Strait with other Persian Gulf littoral states in line with the applicable international law and the sovereign rights of coastal states of the Strait of Hormuz. Number 6, America undertakes, by the way, that one's interesting because, a lot of people are saying, look, we're getting toll free. It's not going to be toll free. Iran is still going to get money for ships going in and out of the Strait, but now they're going to have to do it in conjunction with Oman and others. If they didn't before, I don't know if they were or not before, but, a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, that's a win for Trump. No, it's not. It's just 60 days toll free, maybe to get things, back flowing, quickly before the final deal is actually made. But Iran is still going to be able to control, the entry and exit in the Strait of Hormuz, along with the other coastal countries. Number 6, America undertakes with regional partners. This is the one that has everybody fucking melting down. Everybody is melting down over this one. America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive mutually agreed plan with at least US dollars 300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of Iran. The mechanism for the implementation of this plan will be finalized as part of the final deal within 60 days. All required licenses, waivers, and permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States. People are saying Trump gave Iran $300 billion. $300 billion of your taxpayer money are going to Iran. No, they're not. Go ahead.
No, I was saying we're not. If you read the words that follow that $300 billion.
Yeah. Reconstruction, economic development. This is investment into Iran. Okay. And, people can say, well, should we have, foreign investment? If you've read Confessions of an Economic Hitman,
We're going to have an embassy there and we're going to have some type of oil mechanism there.
I agree. Just like Venezuela. I think it's going to be the Venezuela model. And, this is, the United States is going to get some sort of ROI out of this. And it won't be through, our government, but it'll be through American corporations and American backed corporations that are going in there. And, yeah. Number 7, the United States undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against Iran, including the United Nations Security Council resolutions, the IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, in an agreed upon schedule. As part of the final deal, Iran and America acknowledge the critical importance of the sanctions termination issue above mentioned and express their intentions to immediately address these issues in the negotiations to achieve mutual agreement on them. This is nothing new for President Trump. Trump laid this out about a year ago. Again, we'll get to that in a second here. I'm going to show you all of this stuff. But, this is the other thing that people are freaking out about, that Trump lifted all the sanctions against Iran, and now we're allowing the terrorist regime to go into business and blah, blah, blah.
This is the pathway of destroying terrorists.
This is the pathway of destroying, and not just terrorists, but this is the pathway of destroying globalist, and by globalist, I mean intelligence, which is the Praetorian Guard of the globalist, intelligence influence over Iran, giving them back their own sovereignty. When we talk about Venezuela, and we just saw this happen in Venezuela, the entire crisis in Venezuela was foundationally created by the United States and other Western nations, Western, Europe as well.
Economic destabilization, it just creates prime soil for chaos.
Yes, and by sanctioning Venezuela, we forbid them from getting essentially from trading with the modern world. And by doing that, what do? You isolate them to trading with the people who don't necessarily align with the globalist, the EU and American globalist, and that is Iran, Russia, and China. The three big countries, China and Russia being the biggest, of course, that don't align with the EU globalist and World Economic Forum and all that shit, they were trading with Venezuela because they were the only ones that could. And so by lifting those sanctions, you open up Venezuelan markets, you allow goods to flow in, goods to flow out. And what do you know? The economy picks back up. So we did the same thing to Iran. So any deal that didn't involve lifting sanctions would just be a perpetuation of the same intelligence IC grip, interventionalists, I think is what Trump calls them. It would be the same thing. And so this was a must-have that the sanctions are lifted on Iran. It was a must-have. Would you? I think you would agree with that.
I agree completely with that.
So watching neocons melt down over that, I love it. I love it. All right, number 8. Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons and have agreed to resolve the disposition of stockpile enriched material pursuant to a mechanism that will be mutually agreed upon and to be downblended on site under the supervision of the IAEA. The two parties also agreed to discuss the issue of enrichment and other mutually agreed matters related to Iran's nuclear needs. This is another one that I've said since day one that a lot of people, I don't think anybody here at Badlands has had this take, but Iran absolutely should be able to have a civilian nuclear program. There's no question about that.
Every country should.
Okay. We're tracking on that too. I think you and I might have butted heads on that a while ago.
A civilian one, yeah.
Okay.
With complete oversight, and to certain percentages, absolutely. Now you start to breach that threshold, or you start to create other facilities in question, we can bomb the shit out of you. I'm okay with that too. I wanted to go look something up just to make sure I had the direct quote from Vice President Vance on that 300 million, because people were saying, well, Vance is contradicting President Trump, and he doesn't. This is the exact quote from Vice President Vance. That's the sort, and this is when asked about the potential 300 billion to rebuild Iran. VP said, quote, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. And they don't mention that part about the Gulf Coast Coalition. Too, when you go back into Trump's interpretation of that, that includes sanction relief. That includes a lot of stuff. So a lot of people are trying to make it seem like we're just dropping them a check for 300 billion. That ain't the case.
Pallets full of cash in the middle of the night? No.
Yeah, like that ain't happened before.
Yeah, right. Pallets full of cash. All right, so reading on here. Pending the final deal, Iran and U.S. agree to maintain the status quo. Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program. America will not impose any new sanctions and will not deploy additional forces. And by the way, on that note with the status quo, I just jumped back up here. I had highlighted Iran reaffirms it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. And that's a very specific and very deliberate word right there. Reaffirms. There's nothing new in this. Again, I think the Iran will not have a nuclear weapon was the kind of talking point that justified what's actually being done in this region. And we'll get to that when we get to Trump's earlier words. But that was the, kind of the, what would you call it? The not the scapegoat, but the justification, I guess, kind of the excuse to go in and do what we're doing.
Here's what I'll say to that. And I don't know if you agree with me or where you kind of stand on this one. Is I absolutely believe that Iran was in possession of or trying to obtain a nuclear weapon, 100%. But I don't think it's the Iranian government that was facilitating that. I think it's the deep state apparatus that controls the IRGC. And I think that they were in pursuit of that nuclear weapon because they were going to use it, not on America, because they would lose in every scenario and they want control of America, not on Russia, but they were going to use it to propagate this fear, whether it was going to be used against, name a country in the region, right? Saudi Arabia. Was it going to be used against Qatar? It was going to be used to show that, hey, we need to have this endless war because who's the next country that's going to get nuked? And whether you want to say that Mossad was behind that, MI6, the CIA, I don't differentiate between all of them, but I think that they actually absolutely were in pursuit of a nuclear weapon. They were using Iran as the scapegoat of where it was going to happen. So this way it happens from there, and this gives them the green light. This was going to be the final check mark to be like, yeah, we're ready for World War III.
I mean, I can. So in your scenario, is the Ayatollah aware of the nuclear program?
He doesn't have control over it.
But no. But is he aware of it? Is he aware of it?
He's probably aware of it to the scope that he thinks it's a civilian. He probably is not aware of the fact that there's an actual freaking nuclear facility in his country. I don't think he has any. Here's where I stand. I don't think that he had the read-in knowledge from the deep state that controlled the IRGC. I think there was a huge component of separation within the Iranian government. You have the IRGC and the civilian component. I think people acknowledge that. And there's a third one too. But I think even within the faction of the IRGC, there's the part that makes the decisions that is not controlled by Iran. And I believe, I think it's the deep state. And the deep state that controls that was going to make sure that weapon developments that happened there were under their control.
So I can get on board with that. Like, there's no question that Mossad has absolutely infiltrated the IRGC. There's no question about that. And in fact, the next little tidbit when we get through with this MOU will back up exactly that thought.
Because it goes to the conversation when Trump says they're going to give us the nuclear dust.
Right.
And I think what he's saying there is, when we get that nuclear, the nuclear dust, and when we have this, because here's the thing, this is why the deep state fears. Once we have an established allied relationship with Iran, because it's going to happen, they're not going to be looked at as an adversary. They're going to be looked at as an ally.
Agreed.
When that happens, that means we're going to have this free flowing of information. You don't think our military intelligence is going to be there collecting the nuclear dust in cooperation with the good Iranian government that's now finally in control of their own company? It absolutely is. And then that nuclear dust, when it gets tested, what do you think it's going to start backfilling to? Yep. It's going to start showing who was actually a part of that equation to get Iran a nuclear weapon. And that's when the shit's going to pop off the doors.
Well, this is, I don't know if you've ever heard Ghost lay out his theory on Soleimani?
The one that always worked for Mossad?
Yeah. Well, that's Ghost's theory, is that he was Mossad and that Israel was supposed to pull the trigger on that missile strike.
It was their guy.
And they didn't, right? They pulled out at the last minute because it was their guy. And then when Trump said, no, we're going through with it, and took him out, that's when, and Iran barely retaliated, right? That's when Khamenei or whoever it was, Pozheshkian, I don't remember who it was specifically that called Trump, but called him up and said, hey, we got to retaliate just to save face on the world stage, but don't worry, we're not going to hit anybody. And Trump disclosed all this. Like, this has been a soft disclosure the whole entire time. This has been a soft disclosure. I'm with you.
If Hamas was always the little boogeyman that they had on the doorstep, and Iran was always the big boogeyman, and it was the ideology of what that represented in potential that allowed for Israel's IDF and Unit 8200 and Mossad and all them to keep facilitating what they do. What did Trump do early on? Everybody forgets he went and had a Hamas to the point where the people were shouting and turning on them. They lost all their power when he had that meeting with Hamas. And even Bibi was like, what? Because Bibi wasn't a part of that one either when that happened.
Right.
And so he removed the power of Hamas. Now he's removing the power of Iran. And so when I say power, I'm talking like the threat, the threat potential that they represent. Well, if there's no boogeyman left, then how do you keep doing the moves military that Israel's done? Well, you got to create another boogeyman. Right. And that's why recently we hear the conversations between Bibi and Erdogan. Why? Because, then Turkey will become that new one.
But I don't want to fuck with Turkey, man.
You don't, because then
we have obligations to Turkey.
You're talking Article 5 and all that others. So what does that represent? It's an exit strategy. That's Trump knocking on Bibi's door saying, if you go this way, you give me an exit strategy out of you being our greatest ally. I do this. And then if Erdogan kicks the shit out of you and I don't get involved, it's because I don't want to take my country in violation of all of NATO. Because remember, it's about the normies' perspective, not ours.
Yep. So
he's forcing them to accept the hugs that the Middle East is doing or not. So listen, everybody wants Israel to blow up. Never going to happen. Israel's always going to exist. You guys might as well, let the cope set in. I know some of you really hate Israel, but they're always going to exist. Now, what the borders look like, I'm open to see what that looks like, right? But what Trump's doing in the Middle East right now is he's getting all the countries to hug Israel. We love you. Israel's like, nah, one of you's got to be our enemy. No, we love you. Because if everybody's trying to hug on you and be peaceful, any type of military move you make starts making you look like the issue. And they're seeing that happen right now.
Hold that thought. Let's get through this MOU and then we can get into more of that kind of stuff. Because I've got, Ghost had a fantastic, if you didn't see the Geopolitics with Ghost segment here on Badlands Daily on Tuesday, 10 out of 10 recommend go back and watch it, because he probably made the best case I've heard so far for Bibi being completely controlled by Trump and having to be the reason that Bibi had to be the person that was in power in Israel when all this went down. And I'll just cover it briefly, but go back and watch that. But jumping back into this, number 9, pending the final deal, Iran agrees to maintain the status quo. We read that one. Number 10, the United States undertakes immediately upon signing the MOU and until the termination of sanctions that the Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products and derivatives, and all associated services, including banking transactions, insurances, and transportation. So in addition, Iran is going to waive all the tolls and the fees, so to speak, for the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. is like, we're going to unfreeze your stuff, but we're going to give you're going to be able to send your oil all throughout the world. And you know who that hurts the most, Alpha? Did you freeze?
No, you have me in suspense.
Come on, you know who that hurt. Who does it hurt the most if Iran now has no sanctions on their oil and can trade oil on the global stage?
That hurts the globalists.
No, that hurts China.
Well, yeah, in the energy race, but
that crushes China. China's honeypot, or not honeypot, but it's kind of a honeypot.
It forces Venezuela and Iran force China into the same thing. And when I say China, I'm talking about the CCP, because I make a distinction between China and the CCP.
No, this is all of China. This is all of China. Because China as a whole, as a collective, China was getting oil for pennies on the dollar from Iran and from Venezuela because it was all sanctioned oil. When Trump lifts those sanctions, that's gone.
No, I'm with you. But what I'm saying is when I address China, it's like the United States. There's the United States and there's the establishment United States. Yeah. Well, with China, there's Xi, who wants to work with us. He wants to be part of the Sovereign Alliance, but he has the deep state that operates in China, which is known as the CCP. And this is that internal faction of war that's taking place there, which is going to unfold in 2027. That's another topic. But no, I agree with you on that, because if it forces the deep state or the CCP in China to now have this, again, stabilization relationship, because everybody else is going to be getting oil at good prices. Where are you going to pay that black market price now? You can't. So that means you have to pay an extraordinary amount of money for whatever oil you can get, which means that you are not going to be able to afford that.
America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of Iran upon the implementation of this MOU. And mutually agree on the procedures related to the release of these funds during negotiations. Well, that's kind of weird, because we're like, hey, we're going to completely release these funds. Moscow's been burning in the news, everybody's freaking out on YouTube. Moscow's gotten hit by a drone. That's every day for the last 6 months.
Deep state system. We gotta start a war.
How do we get another war going? Oh, Moscow got hit by a drone. Okay. And then you go look and it's some little drone struck a apartment, whatever. Again, if it's something significant, we'll cover it tomorrow. It's show's already prepped. Jumping back in, it says yeah, there it is. So if we released all the frozen assets while the MOU is being implemented, why wouldn't Iran just go and claw all that stuff back before the deal is actually inked? The final deal is inked, dry, and done, right? And then it says mutually agree on the procedures related to the release of these funds during the negotiations. So basically, we've unfrozen all of Iran's funds, which I think is actually a good thing. And then here's the one that we alluded to earlier when we were talking about the Board of Peace. The U.S. and Iran agree that an executive mechanism will be established to monitor the successful implementation of this MOU. Can you say the board of peace? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get into all the meltdown and everything else, any reactions? Or
I think Trump knows and has always known exactly what he's doing, exactly how this is going to play out, and we get to enjoy the show.
I think so too. I'm with you. All right, so I'm looking, and okay, Moscow's burning. There's a fire in Moscow. Okay. What else are we supposed to do with this? Maybe Putin will say, you know what, Zelensky, we've had enough of you, and flick the little man off the map for good.
It's Zelensky throwing a tantrum because Trump kept ignoring him at the G7.
I'll get to that Cheeto man if he doesn't want to deal with me.
It's like there's 3 different videos out there. It's 3 videos, but I think 2 of them are from the same incident, just a different angle. So I'll say there's at least 2 times where Zelensky goes to try to shake Trump's hand. And he's like, nah, bitch. Like, he just ignores him, dude. It's
oh my God. I got to turn off the YouTube, like not turn it, but go back away from it. Cause like there's like somebody spamming Moscow's burning. Moscow's been burning for like 6 months. Stop buying into the propaganda. It's all garbage. It's all meant to invoke an emotional response from you freaking out about something that's happening. Russia is fine. Ukraine is in no way, shape, or form a threat to Russia. All right. I mean,
never was.
It was never a threat. People are just like, all right. So let's get back into Iran, because this was fascinating. From RT, Iran declares victory over the U.S. I love that. They declared victory over us, RT. So this is Russian, Russia Today. The 14-point document was signed remotely by President Trump and his Iranian counterpart, Masoud Pozheshkian, the president of Iran. Now, to be fair, Khamenei would not normally, the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, would not normally be the one tasked with signing this, but it is very interesting that Pozheshkian was the guy that signed this, because what has Trump said? Trump has said, the first regime, we got him out. We didn't like the second regime either, so we got them out. And now we're on to the third regime. And these are guys that are level-headed, rational guys, right? Is that Pozheshkian? Has he done away with the clerical leadership in Iran?
The other thing that's very interesting is the words Trump used, because he didn't say regime. He said we didn't like group 1 and we didn't like group 2. And that's the same verbiage that's used with psychological operations.
Yeah.
So I could be stretching it, but I truly see Trump saying, we didn't like intelligence group number 1. We didn't like intelligence group number 2. So we finally moved into an actual government that's looking out for Iran, because he did say that part.
Well, and Pozheshkian, I think, is the level head in this whole ordeal. I think he's always been the level head, but because of the theocratic nature of Iran, he didn't always have the power. In fact, we've heard him say previously, remember when he resigned like 3 weeks ago when it was fake news? It was fake news, right? The what was the Iran International, which, it was funny because me and Ghost both at the same time, completely separate from each other, both at the same time, me and Ghost both saw that story and we're like, okay, maybe we need to dig on this Iran International a little bit. And you come to find out it's a London-based globalist firm that's backed by British Saudi oligarchs, which means MI6. And we're like, okay, so wait, Iran International isn't Iran state media. It's just globalist media that's beamed down straight to Iranians to make them, buy into the globalist agenda, or at least, begin the brainwash process. So Pozheshkian was never going to resign, but that was the narrative that was being put out there. And it was saying that Pozheshkian doesn't have any power. He can't do anything. Well, Pozheshkian's the guy that went up there and signed the damn document with Donald Trump, with President Trump, the most powerful man in the world, right? So I'm going to say that Pozheshkian probably does have some power. And then a lot of folks, the one thing we were dead on right from the beginning was that Pahlavi will not be back in power, right? When Trump said Venezuela model, the globalists, who did they want? They wanted Raza Pahlavi, the crown prince, or whatever his name was, the former prince, the artist formerly known as Prince Raza Pahlavi. They wanted him put in power because, he represents the old guard.
The two people that everybody panicked, when it was Venezuela and they wanted what's her name, Christina Machado. No, that's some
Karina Machado, aka
Hakuna Matata.
Trump shot that down. When they want Pahlavi, Trump shot that down. But again, the narrative was there because all the Panikins were pushing that. This is what's going to happen. It didn't happen. If you guys haven't been keeping score from January 20th of 2025 to today, Panikins are 0% Big beautiful bill that's going to be used for surveillance against Americans. Didn't happen, but it was used to go and collect up MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and all the illegals in our country. Literally everything that they've told you that Trump was going to do, they're batting 0%. They haven't even gone one right yet.
Tehran has argued, and this is back to the RT article, Tehran has argued that the document reflects a series of concessions by Washington. Those, again, none of these are concessions, by the way. And I'm going to show you. Trump said this over a year ago that this is how it was going to happen. And I'll show you, including the lifting of U.S. naval blockade. That's not a concession. That's a good thing. Like, that's beneficial to Iran and to the United States. Like the blockade was like when your parents used to have to give you a spanking when you were a kid, and they'd be like, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, but it hurts you too. You're like, how the hell is that possible? I'm the one that's getting the physical pain. And the parents like, yeah, but I'm the one that's going to, I'm the one that's feeling this emotionally, right? It's kind of in that regard. America, by doing that blockade, we're hurting the rest of the world by cutting off this oil, but we're also hurting Iran by cutting off, their ability to sell this oil, hurting China as well and other countries as well. So the naval blockade, that's not a victory for Iran. That's a victory for both parties, in my opinion.
For everybody.
Yeah, for everybody. Right. And that's why Trump signed it with the G7, EU leaders that were there and everybody else that was there. That's why he signed it there.
Especially because those insurance prices for those ships going through the Strait of Hormuz is going to plummet.
Mm-hmm. Everything's going to plummet. Now I don't know if we'll see the 240 gas. That was kind of, a tongue-in-cheek remark that took hold, but we're definitely going to see, probably close to $3, I would say.
It's going to drop.
Yeah, big time. Well, I told John, I was, he took it very seriously in his run with it, that 240. I think we might see it in some places. I think somebody said they saw sub $3 a gallon in, where the hell? Somebody posted on X yesterday. They said, well, it dropped 40 cents within a matter of like 3 hours, and that put it down around $2.95 a gallon.
If we're sub $4 a tank, if we're in the range of like 360 to 370 here in Cali, I'll be happier than a mug. I'll be so damn happy, bro.
Well, when you guys lose, when the Republicans lose the election in November, you're moving to Florida anyway. So we got great gas prices out here, bro. We got great gas prices out here.
Everybody watching, start getting your property in California, because in the next 2 years, the property value in California is going to skyrocket when we have a Republican-dominated government.
Well, you're totally gay, so now you can join the California Gay Registry, because as a independent news source, I have just declared that you're a homosexual, but only when you're in camis. Cammy's no homo, right? Cammy's no homo.
Fact check true.
It's a Marine joke for those that don't know what we're talking about right there. Okay, reading on sanction waivers for Iranian oil exports, access to frozen Iranian funds, and a U.S.-backed economic reconstruction plan worth at least $300 billion. Washington has also agreed not to impose new sanctions or deploy additional forces in the region while the sides negotiate a final agreement. Tehran highlighted the memorandum's language on Lebanon. Quote, if the Israeli regime's attacks on Lebanon continue, it will be considered a violation of the other party's commitments under the Memorandum of Understanding, Bagay said. He's the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman. The memorandum is not a final peace agreement, but launches a 60-day negotiation period during which Washington and Tehran are expected to discuss Iran's nuclear program, sanctions relief, frozen assets, the future administration of the Strait of Hormuz, and a final settlement to be endorsed by the UN Security Council. I think you're a bit presumptive that it's going to be the UN Security Council, but we could be wrong. I think it might be the Ministry of Peace. The nuclear language in the document states that Iran, quote, reaffirms it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons, something Tehran has been stating for years. Okay. So now we've gotten Pozheshkian signed it. Trump signed it. Israel was not even privy to the document. And what is the first reaction we get from Israel? And bear with me, I'm having to hit refresh on all of these documents. This is the first post we get from Netanyahu specifically about this in a work meeting with the head of Mossad. Do you think he's telling Mossad, like, hey, knock it off in Lebanon, knock it off? I don't know.
Well, there's two things that go on to keep it fair, though. It wasn't just Bibi. The president of Lebanon came out and said, Iran don't speak for us or the United States. So you have...
But the United States does speak for Lebanon.
I don't disagree with you. But again, it's not just Israel, it's Lebanon too. And what does that tell you? That there's still globalist control that's taking place in this part too that needs to be eradicated. And Trump knows his moves. When the MOU has writings that say we got to make sure this shit don't happen, that's giving Trump authority to say, in order to keep this peace, to honor this and to keep it going, this is how shit's going to go down. And how does that look? Does that mean that Trump's going to start turning U.S. Navy ships against Israel? No, not a remote chance that happens. But it does get to do things like Trump says, hey, all that money that we were sending you for this military package, these types of flight, these types of jets, we're ceasing that right now unless you stop. It gives Trump leverage with aid that's going into Israel. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to make them behave. And why does that matter? Because how much has Israel depleted in these combat operations against Iran? They need aid now more than ever, which goes back into the conversation of Israel saying, over the next couple of years, we want to break our financial dependence on the U.S. What does that tell you? That there's a financial dependence on the U.S. So if all of a sudden, right now, Trump said, hey, if you do another attack on Lebanon, we're going to cease all aid coming into you, Israel's not in a position to handle that, which means Trump has Bibi by the short and curlies.
That's just like Zelensky. Same playbook as Zelensky, coming in there and acting strong. We're going to break off ties with the U.S. We don't need them anymore. Zelensky says the same thing. And then what do? They always come crawling back at the G7 and just, begging. We're going to hit a sponsor. We're going to keep moving on this, get the meltdown from meltdown and agreements, kind of some weird agreements that are going to be a little bit crazy, but we're going to hit a sponsor here real quick. 2 sponsors. All right, parents, real talk for a second. America is about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on America's 250th birthday. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-government the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters. And it's not just fireworks and hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. You just need to pay $2 for shipping and handling. Just head to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com and get the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. And also, Alpha, I'm not going to see you tomorrow, but happy Juneteenth, brother.
He changed his shirt 3 times before he left. Tried on a smile that didn't
Everybody
fit
saved.
quiet.
Everybody.
Else like they
Even
knew.
me?
Especially you.
You mean I just have to use a promo code to get the discount?
BB truly is an idiot.
He had to earn it anyway. Come as you are. That's who we're waiting for. You don't need a different face walking through that door. Come as you are. You were not from the start. Self-disclosures for everybody.
Hi, fellas. What year is it?
Soft disclosures for everybody.
All right, softdisclosure.com, promo code Juneteenth until tomorrow. Check it out. Alpha, new case, $5 Rumble rant. If Alpha was any more gay, he'd open a vegan restaurant and call it Alpha Sprouts. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Or a juice bar, Alpha's Juices.
Alpha's. You've been thinking about that for way too long, homie. All right, let's get back into the news. So we covered the Netanyahu deal. So here was President Trump yesterday.
A garden shop. Alpha's
What?
Seeds.
Oh, here was President Trump yesterday talking about the deal, the announcement, and love. By the way, I love the crude oil down in the bottom right, below 80.
Do this for regime change, but I think this group is regime change. I mean, hey, the first group is dead. One little morning, having breakfast, the whole group, they thought they'd never be caught because we never bombed during breakfast, but we bombed, and they all 88 people. And I'm not proud of it at all. But
Isn't that fascinating? They didn't think they'd be caught because we never bombed during breakfast.
the second group came in and they were very unreasonable too. And they were all gone. They were all gone. And then the third group, we've been dealing with them. Couple left this planet, but we've been dealing with them. And again, they've been fine. I mean, I've had a lot easier. I've had some easier ones. They're tough. They're smart. Maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has already increased very substantially, and the normal flow of energy will resume in the coming days, and trillions of dollars will be made by the world, and the stock market will, I believe, continue to rise. The only difference is that a player that's very volatile, very tough, very smart, frankly, you know, they have in one way a primitive culture, but it's also a genius primitive culture. They're very smart people and very good negotiators, but so are we. So rather than possibly going into a depression, rather than having your favorite president be Herbert Hoover, I was always the one I didn't want to be. I wouldn't have preferred Nixon. I wouldn't have preferred, there are plenty I wouldn't prefer, but the one I always thought of, Herbert Hoover, and he caused it. He raised taxes too fast and he raised interest rates too fast, all at the same time. And it caused the Great Depression.
Interesting. He said, I wouldn't have wanted to be Nixon. Of all the presidents, I mean, Kennedy was killed. Reagan was shot. Nixon, the guy that was removed from office, and Watergate, whether or not that's everything that we were told it was, we could get into that. But I thought that was, really interesting. The breakfast thing was just hilarious to me when I heard that, as, somebody that was in Afghanistan and knows that, when it gets to a certain temperature, the Taliban, or the drug lords, as I like to call them, they did not really like to engage with us when it was too cold out. They were more of a warm weather fighter. And so when he says something like that, like, they didn't think we'd strike them because we don't strike during breakfast. Oh, I just thought that was fascinating.
Nobody wants to go to war when they're hungry.
No. You finish your breakfast. Make sure you eat all that cereal. Don't forget your fruit. Oh, man, that was just epic. The neocons are absolutely melting down. This was a quote here from Ted Cruz. Nearly 1,000 Americans have been murdered by the Ayatollah and the mullahs. It is not remotely in America's interest for us to pay to rebuild that capacity that we just took out. Don Jr. responds, the only problem with this quote is that Ted Cruz is lying through his teeth. Lying Ted Cruz. That's what Trump used to call him. Is lying through his teeth about the deal. We're not giving them a cent, and he knows that. Using fake news about the peace deal to undermine Donald Trump is the opposite of MAGA. He also got reader community noted. The Trump admin states the Iran deal provides no direct U.S. funds, however, includes sanctions relief across access to frozen Iranian assets, oil sales, and $300 billion, an access to a $300 billion investment from fund from other nations. President Trump himself says Iran has agreed to never have a nuclear weapon. Also, the story that the U.S. is paying Iran $300 million is fake news put out by the Democrats. President DJT. Any comment on that before we get into? So I didn't plan on the MOU going as long as it did, Alpha. So I had two clips from Mark Warner and Cory Booker, because they did two segments yesterday that dealt with two crazy stories, Bill Pulte and the MOU. So I'm going to save those for tomorrow, because with my power going out, the bookmarks, I don't want to sit here and have to go through 10 minutes of them. So I apologize for that in advance to the audience. But here is Mikey Pence. Can't not go with Mikey Pence talking about this.
It sounds like you think, from what we know so far, this is a mistake by the Trump administration.
Well, it's much bigger than a mistake. I mean, when the president took that historic step to strike those nuclear facilities last year, this is the first time in 47 years that an American president had taken the fight directly to the mullahs in Tehran. And America was safer as a result. And the fact that he tried diplomacy for the following year to begin to make progress, and then finally recognized that we just got to take the fight to them, launched Operation Epic Fury. Our military responded brilliantly. But in this moment, the posture that we're getting from the Iranians, but my concern is what appears to be leaking out, these immediate concessions, particularly sanctions waivers right out of the gate that would essentially be a lifeline to the Iranian regime, I think is ill-advised. We ought to keep the pressure on, keep the blockade on, and if need be, let our armed forces get back to work.
Let our armed forces get back to work. Here's another, and this one's gonna sting, although there are some interpretations of this, in my opinion. But here's Trey Gowdy.
Senator, it's wonderful to see you. I was a little surprised, honestly. I mean, we literally had our foot on their throat, militarily, economically, and I read this MOU, if you will, I guess about 48 hours ago, and I didn't believe it. I thought somebody was spoofing me when I saw it, because I see what we're giving up, and then I see this word downblend, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Sandra, but if you can downblend, then you can upblend. And how long would it take Iran to upblend? Because Donald Trump is going to be gone in January 2029, but the so-called supreme leader is not going to be. So here's my question for my fellow citizens. Do you really think Iran has abandoned its nuclear ambition? Do you believe them? What do you think they're going to do with the $300 billion? What are they going to do with the oil revenue? You think they're going to build schools? You think they're going to build, like, they're going to make women's life better? Or are they going to continue to target America and Israel? I happen to think the latter.
Now that one's, Trey Gowdy's got some, he's got some clout from the boards. What's your take on those two?
They're saying what the establishment is always going to say. They want the war. If you have economic stabilization and people get a taste of that, they want more. Prosperity is contagious. And then when you try to threaten to take that away, and guess what? If the IRGC all of a sudden wanted to go and start creating a nuclear weapon system, and that word and scuttlebutt started to come out and hit the headlines, do you think the people would take for that? Absolutely not. Because it would take away the prosperous life that they're going to be able to adopt here in the next few years. So do I think, are we going to see schools built? Yes. And shopping malls and tourist attractions and beachfront hotels. Yes, I think we are absolutely going to see all that. Well, what makes you think that? Go back and look at Iran in the 60s and the 70s. What makes you think that they don't want that life again? And now to have that life with the backing of the United States of America and other allied, I won't call them allied nations yet, but neighboring agencies, of course. They need war. They need the fear, because fear allows them to have control.
man, keep going, because this is so bad, dude. Like, that power outage reset all of my bookmarked tabs that I had, and I have, man.
Well,
You know what? Let's.
to the conversation on did me and you talk about Jay Clayton yet?
No, but I'm not ready to move off of
Okay.
this yet. But we can. All right. So
Well, I'll wait if you want to discuss that another time. I'm good with it. But I mean, to bring it back to this then with the Iran in the war, the military industrial complex is taking a hit to the gut right now.
absolutely.
And why is that important? Because that what you're hearing Trey Gowdy say and all these other politicians is because lobbyists are blowing their phones up right now. You cannot allow this to happen because the establishment, which is controlled by the lobbyists, have always been able to facilitate those demands. And what's happened here in the last 18 months is Trump has shown you guys don't have that power anymore. And that lobby money can get these guys to be talking heads, but it's now talking heads without results. And they're not used to that. So again, you guys know that famous term, panic in DC. This is what you're seeing, panic in DC, because they're losing. Because if these people lose their money, everything falls apart. Everything. Their ability to influence and negotiate wars and conflicts is done, and regime changes, it's done. So
I found it. Thank you for filibustering there. Although it was good. I mean, good commentary, but I needed that to find this clip. Okay, so we'll probably save some of the rest of the clips here because, again, we went really long on a lot of this. But I want to go back to what I believe was maybe the most prolific geopolitical speech in any of our lifetimes. And it's because President Trump, during this speech back in May of 2025 at the Saudi U.S. Investment Forum in Riyadh, laid it out. And I've got two clips I want to play, and think about what he said over a year ago, almost about a year ago at this investment forum, and then think of where we're at today with the memorandum of understanding that was just signed.
Billions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
And so in that clip right there, he's laying out something that we've talked about on this network for so long, and that is the globalist and the intelligence intervention in the Middle East broadly, but narrowly in Iran. Going back to the Kissingers, Brzezinski's, a big new Brzezinski, going back to the CIA in general. You're sitting back. Oh, was that just a flex?
yeah, no, I'm just enjoying it.
Oh, okay. But Trump was laying it out there. He was saying that we had no fucking clue what we were doing over there. You guys are a complex society. We don't understand. We're a Western democracy. We are a Christian, democracy, republic, whatever you want to call it. I understand, people freak out when you use the word democracy. So republic. But broadly, the Western world is a democratic society that is, based on, Christian values and they're not, right? They're more theocratic in nature. They're Muslim, mainly Muslim. We have no idea how their society works, but we continue to try and modernize their societies in our image and our desire. And Trump is saying that's not the way to do it. And when we kind of cut ties with that idea and let you guys develop on your own, you got places like Dubai, you got places like Doha, like Saudi in general right now. And so he goes on. I'll let you comment there because there's another clip that I got to get pulled up here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's the president. I agree with them. We recognize that when we got deployed out there. Our cultures are different. There's some things that their cultures allow that they will challenge us to anger and conflict because we have different ideologies. But at the same time, it's not our world over there. It's theirs.
All right, hang on one second because I found.
And again, just keep going since you're still looking. Prosperity, I think, also leads to involvement. And so a lot of the culture things we have issues with, I think would phase out as technology and culture evolves in those areas if they're allowed to evolve and prosper in those areas.
Okay, so again, with the reset and everything, the beginning part of that did not play. So I apologize, but I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to play this one more time because the beginning part is pretty important for you to hear.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities instead.
Okay, so that's where we picked up, was at Kabul, because he started with that. Instead of Kabul, he says Kabul, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. But, when you look at what President Trump has done throughout this second term, right, cutting the funding to USAID and National Endowment for Democracy and all those other leftist NGOs, intelligence-backed NGOs that have, been basically, oh yeah, we're out there for humanitarian aid and world peace and everything else, and they've done exactly the opposite. Trump is specifically calling them out over a year ago in Riyadh, and then he gets into Iran specifically right here. And let me pull this back in. And I apologize, guys. That shutdown kind of screwed me early on.
Avoidable, and Mohammed knew that. He knew that. Smart people knew that. If only the Iranian regime had focused on building their nation up instead of tearing the region down. Yet I'm here today not merely to condemn the past chaos of Iran's leaders, but to offer them a new path and a much better path toward a far better and more hopeful future. As I've shown repeatedly, I am willing to end past conflicts and forge new partnerships for a better and more stable world, even if our differences may be very profound, which obviously they are in the case of Iran. I have never believed in having permanent enemies. I am different than a lot of people think. I don't like permanent enemies, but sometimes you need enemies to do the job, and you have to do it right. Enemies get you.
You need enemies to do the job, Alpha. It's almost like you have to have a justification to do what you need to do. Does the job mean taking out your enemies? Not necessarily. We can get along with our enemies. He doesn't hold grudges, right? He can be peaceful with his enemies right around the next day. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Let me keep going.
Motivated. In fact, some of the closest friends of the United States of America are nations we fought wars against in generations past, and now they're our friends and our allies. I want to make a deal with Iran. If I can make a deal with Iran, I'll be very happy if we're going to make your region and the world a safer place. But if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero, like I did before. You know that they were a virtually bankrupt country because of what I did. They had no money for terror. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, and take all action required to stop the regime from ever having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
Translation: the deep state will never have a nuclear weapon through proxy Iran. And everybody like, yeah, because we know it's the deep state doing this shit. Yo.
He's literally laying out everything that he ended up doing. He's laying it all out, right? You know, again, we're told that this is a very, very serious war, you know, but I point to this again, and look, it's tragic. We lost 13 service members during this war with Iran. Again, one of the bigger militaries that we faced. It's by far the biggest military that we faced as a country since maybe World War II. Vietnam was not nearly the same as maybe Korea. You can make the argument, I guess, for Korea. But you're telling me that we had this, you know, this very, very serious war, and again, it's absolutely tragic. But Alpha and I both are combat vet Marines that lost guys overseas, so we understand that. But 13 guys for an entirety of a war is very small, especially when I think it was 6 of those was an accident. You know, was essentially a training accident with the KC-130s crashing into each other. That's remarkable numbers. How much of this war was actually real? Because he says we're going to inflict maximum pressure. He doesn't say we're going to inflict maximum damage. We're going to bomb the shit out of them. He doesn't say any of that stuff in that speech. He says we're just going to inflict maximum pressure. So again, how much of this war was real? How much of this had to be something that was, you know, spread out there so that people thought this was a very serious war, so that they could move in the direction of this memorandum and in the direction that we're going right now, where Iran is going to emerge as Venezuela 2.0.
It always, listen, a war in Iran was always going to happen. Always. Inevitable, because that's the plan of the deep state, right? All Trump did was he did it on his terms, on his chessboard, to get the outcome he wanted. And he did it in a genius way, because he did it in a way to make sure that they are not ever going to be in position to facilitate it again. And how do you do that? By creating economic stabilization in the area.
Yep. Steve Cross says, how many IRGC aren't around now? 100,000 or so? Maybe. How do you trust any news source that's reporting that or saying that, though? You can't. We don't know how many are dead in Iran. We don't know how many are dead anywhere. We really don't. We can trust the authoritative sources that tell us Iran lost 100,000 IRGC members. Okay, maybe.
I trust our military.
Is our military saying we lost 100, that they killed 100,000 IRGC?
No, I'm talking about reporting numbers. I trust our military.
I trust in terms of reporting how many we've lost, like U.S. troops, for sure, because there's huge. And this was, you know, I played a clip. Well, I didn't play a clip. I talked about a clip, and I'm not going to announce to people because I don't get into the shit slinging stuff. But they said, you know, they had a very prominent military officer that's retired saying, oh, well, we don't know how many U.S. troops. I think the number's actually a lot higher than what's being reported. Do you know how difficult that is to do that? Because there are troops, you know, and me and Alpha both understand this, like families are aware of this. And so if, you know, somebody lost somebody that's outside of the scope of what's
covered up here in the US.
it would be, and especially given the Trump administration, that would be front and center, that the military is lying about the number of casualties we took.
You would see these families being interviewed by the anti-MAGA, anti-Trump crowd
every day. And so when I saw that, when I heard him make that comment, I lost a tremendous amount of respect for this individual. And again, he was kind of blindsided with that question. So maybe maybe he'll backtrack on that.
He's doubled down, and he's made even worse statements than that one.
Oh, you know who I'm talking about?
Absolutely know who you're talking about.
Put it in the private chat. Make sure I'm right. Make sure you're right.
Make sure to put it in the public chat.
Yeah, don't put it in the public chat. I don't. It's just because I don't like to shit sling.
I'm with you.
I'm not a shit slinger. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So I posted this in our chat the other day, and you're in it. You just never look at it. Lindsey Graham, blink twice if you have been captured.
He did not, did he?
Oh my God! Wait till you read this.
Did he really write that?
Yes, I just had a very lengthy and productive discussion.
I thought you meant the blink.
No. He really wrote this. Listen. Okay. I just had a very lengthy and productive discussion with SEP, who is Southeast Peace Missions, Steve Witkoff. Oh, he tags him twice, about the state of play regarding Iran. After this discussion, it is my opinion that signing the MOU will be beneficial to the United States, in as much as the strait will begin to open and the hostilities with Iran will stop. Whether or not the U.S. can reach an acceptable, verifiable deal with Iran regarding its nuclear program and other issues is yet to be determined, but I see little downside to trying. The economic stability that comes from opening up the strait and the cessation of hostilities could create a pathway to peace well beyond the Iranian conflict. The expansion of the Abraham Accords and normalizing relations between Saudi and Israel is President Trump and my ultimate goal. I think that is best achieved by creating economic stability for the United States, the region, and the world, as well as the cessation of hostilities. The signing of the MOU is an essential step to make that happen, and thus it is worthwhile. I mean, it's not like full blown like Trump, Trump was right on all this, and but it's pretty freaking close.
When did he write that? What day?
Yesterday at 1:08 p.m.
This is wild. For those that watch the show that I do with Ghost on Sundays, the Middle East in 30 minutes ish, shameless plug, and the gems are dropped during that ish. So if you think it's going to be a 30-minute show, you've been warned. But I think it was this last Sunday or the Sunday before that, I told Ghost, bro, if Lindsey Graham comes out and starts to make these anti-war suggestions, I said, I'm going to throw my papers up and just say, yep, enjoy the show. We're watching a show. Why? Because one, people don't understand the power Lindsey Graham has in the Senate.
Yes.
And that's why when people are like, why is Trump endorsing him? Because it would be all out war and Trump would lose the Senate if he didn't. Like that's a level of power that man has. Ladybug Lindsey. I hate him just like everybody else does. But he also is, when you think military industrial complex politicians, you think Lindsey Graham. Like he's one of the people you think about. And so if he comes out and starts to take this position, what does that influence look like in the sphere of normies that are tied into that? That's a big deal. So I did not know he said that. So if you can shoot me that link, because I want to include it this Sunday when I talk to Ghost, because I'm gonna be like, bro, that is pretty damn wild. Because the follow-up statement that I made with that to Ghost was, if we start to see that kind of rhetoric start to come out of these guys consistently, then we are probably done with the military operations of what we've been used to. It's probably done. That's kind of wild, man. You got me you got me just like, damn.
That's why I said blink twice if you've been captured. And are we ready to see?
There's a post on the board too that references him. I'm gonna have to go look it up. It might just be under Graham. No, I think it was Lindsey Graham. That kind of got me open to that. I don't remember what it was. Because there's the ones that have them pictured with the bad dudes and stuff like that. But
well, the thing on Graham is he, during the hearing I think it was for Justice Kavanaugh, he was talking about treason and military tribunals and all of that stuff. And, everybody kind of that's what everybody references when they're saying we got a little bit of hope for Lindsey Graham. The other one is Trey Gowdy, right? And Trey Gowdy, in that clip we played of Fox News earlier, the interesting thing about what Trey Gowdy is saying in that clip, and he basically says, like, well, what's going to happen in January 2029 when Trump's gone and the Ayatollah is still there? Well, first off, the Ayatollah is most likely not going to be there, right? The son, what do they call their imperial committee that elects the Ayatollah? I can't remember what it's called, but it's got like a clerical name. They haven't selected Mojtaba Khamenei, the gay son, which I think there's a reason why Trump is doing that, the gay thing, because that's forbidden in Islam, and that would make him unelectable. And so then you kind of like, well, who are we going to pick as the Ayatollah? Meanwhile, Pozheshkian is the guy that's Trump's dealing with on the world stage. He's taken away all the power of the theocratic regime in Iran. And when Gowdy is saying, well, the Ayatollah is going to be back, and what's going to happen after that? Is he making an argument for Trump 2028? Right? Is he making that argument? Did you see JD Vance this week on The View?
I have.
Okay, well, I'll just play this.
And I know a lot of people were pissed that he went on Megyn Kelly.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. They did the View on Gutfeld. Did you see him on Gutfeld?
I didn't see him on Gutfeld.
Oh, so watch this.
Legacy he wants its stability in the Middle East and to be able to turn the entire place into a massive Trump world resort, which I also celebrate because I'm hoping by being on the same show with Vice President Vance that I get a discount code when it opens.
Yes.
Which would absolutely be amazing.
Yeah.
And, to Kat's
If you want
point,
the discount code, it's Trump 2028. That's the discount code.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I did hear about that interview because I heard that Gutfeld and Vance went at her because like I said, this is secondhand to me, but I heard that during that show that she was like, I'm not patriotic when Trump's in power. Like essentially the statement she made is when the opposition's in power, you're not patriotic for your country. And I guess Gutfeld and Vance both fired back at her for that. But I haven't seen the clip myself.
Don Jr. put 10 out of 10 at JD Vance for that comment. So just probably just a couple more things on the Iran thing. Again, I think this is a shot not just at Israel, but this is also backing up what we've been saying about the nuclear civilian infrastructure in Iran.
We've been pretty tough in that. It is a little hard though when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. It's always a little tough. You have to use a little common sense, please.
So there's Trump talking about nuclear infrastructure and civilian nuclear infrastructure and whether or not they're going to be afforded to have that now. And then before we move on completely, the Lebanon thing that I alluded to earlier, Alpha. This was
I found the post, so I'll read it when you're ready.
Oh, go ahead. Pull it up.
All right. So it's post 3612, November 20th, 2019. Chairman Graham, it's time. Senate was the target. Now, if you go back to President Trump and Matt Gaetz, do you remember one of the things they said last year? I think it was either right when he took the presidency or right before he took presidency. But he looks at Matt Gaetz and he goes, we got a secret weapon in the Senate. We got a secret weapon. I think it was Matt Gaetz that he had that conversation with. And everybody's like, what the hell's the secret weapon? Well, all of a sudden, if we fast forward to now, and Graham starts to flip on the military industrial complex. And again, you go to post 3612, Chairman Graham, it's time. Senate was a target. Could it be something? Could be. I'll tell you the one thing if anybody says they knew, they's lying. Nobody would have predicted that Graham would have ever went anti-military. It's why I said it jokingly, because that's how absurd it was. And then he comes out and he makes that post. Bro, this is crazy.
Oh, come on, dude. He literally touches himself to pictures of nuclear warheads.
Yes, dude.
I was shocked. I was downright shocked.
If you guys have ever watched SitRep, you guys know we've had Chad Caton on there. I'm fired up. And you want to talk about the person that hates Lindsey Graham more than anything, it's Chad. And if you want to have an understanding of why Lindsey gets the endorsement from Trump, Chad will explain it to you perfectly. And this is the guy that hates Lindsey more than anybody that's out there. He'll also tell you about ladybugs, but I don't know if you want to know that part.
Oh, yeah. And let me so the Lindsey Graham part, right? And the secret weapon in the Senate. You know, we've often talked a lot about, you know, these ops and people that are, you know, running specific roles and all that. I've theorized on a lot of people that I think are doing something deliberately, whether or not they know it, they're being pushed to do something in a deliberate manner. Again, you know, the ability to control somebody or manipulate thoughts and perceptions is not always a bad thing. You can make somebody hate you if it's the right time, right? And I think they're starting to come home. And this is Tucker. And I know a lot of people are going to freak out about this, or you know, no, fuck Tucker. Just hear me out.
I'll be one of those.
The op is over. Listen.
It's appropriate that we release the agreement, and we did send a copy to Israel, by the way.
We sent Israel a copy of the agreement. Well, you sent them a copy, did you? You BCC'd them? We just reached the outline of a peace agreement with the country we are fighting with Israel without consulting Israel, bitch. That's exactly what that means. Shh, adults are talking. At one point, he said, you know, I just think it's just too much. I think going forward, we may leave the fight against Hezbollah to Jelani, who runs Syria. Now, Jelani, of course, is a former Al-Qaeda leader. He's just a more reasonable person. If you're looking for humane treatment of civilians, you got to go to the Al-Qaeda guy, not the Israeli prime minister. That's what the president said. It's unbelievable.
Telling you he's coming home. Jelani is, I mean.
Tucker ain't coming home, bro. I hate to break your heart.
Yeah, he is.
You want to make another bet?
The whole thing is an op, bro. The whole.
I don't disagree with you, but Tucker ain't coming home. Tucker has been secretly working for Red Seed Ventures, along with Megan.
Yeah, okay. The Fox News subsidiary.
The same people that have been pushing the anti-Trump propaganda, trying to subvert. You don't subvert the administration in order to support the administration. It's the most dangerous tactic. In psychological operations, you never create uncontrolled chaos, because then you can't account for the outcome.
That's what we needed. No, that's what we needed.
No.
Chaos.
Controlled chaos. That's why I said uncontrolled chaos. That's why I always tell people, when you see an event that happens and it's uncontrolled chaos, that's never anything that's going to be a result of a white hat operation. 0% chance that goes down. Controlled chaos is a completely different scenario. You can call Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury controlled chaos. I'd agree with that. And because we could see the variables to support that. But when you look at certain things, like go back to the Summer of Love with the BLM riots and all that stuff, that's uncontrolled chaos. That's always going to be a black hat operation. But anyways, to bring it to the point of what you're saying, some people that we think are bad are going to be good, and some people that we think are good are going to be bad, and those roles probably flip multiple times. And I'd be willing to entertain that to a point with Tucker. It's just right now I'm 99% positive that he ain't coming home. He was somebody who was planted a very long time ago, and you can even look into the CIA roots with that. But here's the point I'm trying to make is to bring it to Jay Clayton. Are there red flags with that guy based on his history? The guy would look like a bad guy if you look at his ties. 100%, you can't ignore those red flags. So I started to look into this guy to see if I could make sense out of what Trump was doing. And I'll tie into this. I won't go too far with it. I said, why? And what I realized is last year, Jay comes and he opens up a RICO indictment against Nino Guerrero.
Yep.
Now, for those of you that are not familiar with Nino Guerrero, this is the head of Tren de Aragua, the head. Now, why does that matter? If you go back to Biden's administration, the open borders, there were two groups of people that were facilitating this mass chaos around our country, Tren de Aragua and MS-13, Maura Salvatrucha, right? These people were highlighted. They were pumped to create the fear, right? Well, if you just opened up a RICO case into the leader of that organization, that means through electronic communications, wiretaps, surveillance, intel, everything. You know everything about this group, everything. Which means which cartels assisted them when they're in the United States. You know which money avenues and money laundering assisted them. You know, politicians, NGOs, charities, you know all that stuff. Now, that alone is a big deal. But then something else happened. I think it was 2 or 3 days after Trump announced that this was his new ODNI pick. Trump dropped a bomb on a dude in South America. Y'all want to know who that dude was? Nino Guerrero. It was the one that was all over social media that you see that little greenhouse that explodes.
Yeah, we played it here on Daily.
Yeah, so you have Trump's new pick for ODNI, who, again, his references would make us think he's a bad guy. But last year opens a RICO case into Nino Guerrero. Trump says this is going to be my ODNI. And then a few days later, the leader, the guy that opened up a RICO case in, gets turned into pink mist by Trump. Where do you think that intel and stuff came from for Trump? His new potential ODNI, if they confirm him. This is the kind of stuff that I say.
Indicted Maduro.
Yeah, and indicted Maduro 100%. So what I would say is, and this is just my advice, from this point moving forward, if Trump nominates somebody that on paper, you're just like, what the Frank? Monitor what they do in the next 60 to 90 days, because Trump's going to realize that there's a portion of his base that does research that is not going to be cool with these things. And I think what he's going to do to reaffirm to us that, hey, this is my boy, is he's going to make them do actions that are just extremely detrimental to the deep state establishment to let us be like, oh, all right, there's some breathing room. And I think that's what he did when he dropped the bomb on Guerrero.
Good.
I think that's what Trump was doing, communicating to us. Hey, everybody chill. This is my dude.
Did you see who he picked for to replace Clayton at SDNY?
No. Who'd he pick?
James McDonald, another Sullivan and Cromwell alum. Now, the interesting thing about James McDonald is James McDonald was one of two lawyers that were tasked with investigating FTX, and they were hired by FTX to investigate how FTX was able to collapse.
Sam Bankman-Fried.
Sam Bankman-Fried. Bankman-Fried just lost his appeal and appealed to President Trump
for a pardon.
And Senator Loomis, or is it Senator Loomis, I think, and another Democrat. Loomis is a Republican, but they just put together a resolution to encourage President Trump not to pardon Sam Bankman-Fried.
If that pardon comes, that means that dude just blew the lid on everybody.
Exactly. And so what else did President Trump do when he put out that thing about the Democrats and FISA and the Save America Act? What else did he do that was very interesting with SDNY? He said, I'll pull Pulte from ODNI so that he stays at SDNY because I don't want a gap in time at SDNY. He didn't focus on ODNI, where Pulte, he said, I'll send Clayton back to SDNY until McDonald's ready to get in there and Pulte's ready to get in there because he wants a smooth transition. He says specifically, let me see if it's in that.
He doesn't want to break in chain of custody.
Exactly. He says here. So here's the post that President, and I don't think they covered this yesterday on Daily. Republicans agree with Democrats to remove very fair and talented William Pulte from serving as acting DNI in return for getting FISA approved by the Democrats. However, the great Republicans moved so fast with the hearings of Great Jay Clayton, current U.S. attorney for SDNY, that Pulte would be gone before the Democrats would vote on FISA. Now the Democrats are saying that they will vote against FISA, so Republicans would wound up fulfilled their commitment, but Democrats broke the deal. In addition, the newly nominated U.S. attorney, Jamie McDonald, must be confirmed and blue slipped. Because of the ridiculous views of Republicans on the blue slipping, Democrats are often willing to nix it. I may not be able to get the extraordinary Sullivan Cromwell partner, Jamie, approved, and I don't want to take Clayton away from the great job he is doing until Jamie is in place.
Bro, tell me Trump's not aware of the freaking games.
He knows exactly what's going on down there.
He just publicly shamed them all and said, nah, that ain't going to happen. This is how it's going to happen. Or my boy Pulte is going to be ODNI for 210 days, which means he's not going to get replaced till the end of January. And it ain't going to matter then because none of you clowns are going to be in position because I'm going to have a super majority and then I'll be able to confirm him if he's the guy I want anyway. So y'all want to FA and FO? Let's go. That's
and even, oh man, now I have to find this. But hold on.
This is not Donald Trump.
I agree with Pi Squared. Boss is a
It's a
gangster.
disaster, and it's a crisis waiting to happen. There's also real clarity, I got to say. I mean, we've seen what Pulte has done with these mortgage documents, which again, in the time that I've covered the federal government, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. He had access to one database and federal government mortgage document to happen.
Listen to this, okay? So listen, I was going to play this, but with the reset and everything, I don't have it queued up right where I wanted it.
There's also real clarity, I got to say. I mean, we've seen what Pulte has done with these mortgage documents, which again, in the time that I've covered the federal government, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. He had access to one database and he used that as much as he could. When you start to see
did you see Booker's reaction? Watch Booker. Watch Booker. And
did this dude just say what me and you were talking about?
Yes.
Oh, I'm like, did I just hear what I think I heard?
Yes.
Holy shit.
It's a disaster, and it's a crisis waiting to happen.
There's also real clarity, I got to say. I mean, we've seen what Pulte has done with these mortgage documents, which again, in the time that I've covered the federal government, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. He had access to one database and he used that as much as he could. When you start to see oh, is it a weird coincidence that a bunch of prominent critics of the president all happen to be engaged in mortgage fraud? Or is there one guy who's rooting through their papers? This is what Steve Bannon had to say about Pulte in Pulte's defense, because Bannon is very invested, like Trump, in getting him in. Take a listen.
Why do you think they do not want Bill Pulte to step foot into a DNI headquarters? Why are they moving heaven and earth? Bill Pulte would understand exactly where to go in Tulsi Gabbard's files to look at the information about stolen elections.
What do you think of that?
I mean, he's saying the quiet part out loud. Let's be clear. This is a guy in his position right now has shown he's willing to violate people's privacy, violate ethics rules, and I believe violate the law, all to persecute Donald Trump's perceived enemies. That's with just having mortgage documents that he could violate. Now imagine if he has the apparatus of Americans' national security departments. This could give him insights and ability to continue to break the law, to continue to violate privacy, and try to go after his enemies. They are gearing up for midterms, not national security. They're gearing up to try to cheat in elections like Donald Trump already showed when we had the January 6th attack, and he was inciting riots. He will do whatever.
Everything he just said right there is stuff that they've done to Donald Trump first and foremost. Cory Booker knows damn well that type of access to mortgage documents and access to national intelligence at the level DNI would have, he knows that would be detrimental. And Bannon says, stolen elections. And granted, there is that, the Maricopa hearing that we talked about when this first all went down. But it's not directly the stolen elections. It is the cartel's influence and other influence. I'm watching a show called Animal Kingdom right now. Christy and I. Have you ever seen this?
No, I'm not.
It's about a bunch of it's a family of SoCal not hipsters, but a cool hip SoCal family that's being run by the mother, who's a senior citizen at this point, but they're all crazy surfers and all that crazy stuff. And they just got to the part where she's laundering the money, and they're talking about how she launders it. And she launders it all through real estate, through fake mortgages with fake people living in these houses where the money comes in, rent every day, $5,000 for this house, $8,000 for this house, $5,000 here. And all of that money is coming back to her. Imagine that operation being uncovered for this mortgage. And that's why Pulte will come in at DNI and still remain at FHFA and Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac. And he'll be able to take those two databases and put them together. And Cory Booker is scared shitless. And what's his name? Chris Hayes. He doesn't, I don't think he understands what he just said right there. He doesn't understand what he said right there, but it's there.
I got a message right now. I'll say who it's from because I'm not going to share everything. But Sean Taylor, it's so interesting that his text comes in right now as we're talking about the mortgage fraud. If you guys are unfamiliar with who Sean Taylor is, he did the undercover work, but he did on the narcotics side the way I did on the gang side. He's out there, or used to be, from the area of Tennessee. I won't say where he's at right now for reasons you guys probably figured out. But way back a couple of years ago, Sean is one of the people that was at the forefront of these investigations into the mortgage fraud, which led him as one of the original people to be into the investigations into Act Blue. Well, when all this happened I think it was the year before last, you had the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, TBI, that came after Sean. This is when you guys probably saw all over the media conspiracy cop search warrant. This was in Millersville. Well, Sean, and he was working with, well, I won't say the other people he was working with, but he was working with these people, and they were targeting, guess what? Child and human trafficking in the area of Nashville and Millersville and all these areas, right? Including some other stuff. And that's when TBI hit them. Well, they came out to make it seem like these guys were crazy. Phil Williams, who works for NC5 News out there, who's tied, who has a relationship, or at least a public alleged relationship with people like Rachel Maddow and others. This is how that network works, including, you'll know this name, Midas Media. Well,
I know that name.
The Millersville commissioner who was working or communicating with Phil Williams and all this stuff to target Sean was just arrested and charged with sexual abuse of a child.
Oh, but hasn't that been foreshadowed for a while?
100%.
Yeah.
This is the commissioner that was coming after Sean, calling him a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, snap.
And now he just got arrested on that. What does this tell you? Because the Act Blue investigations, the mortgage fraud investigations, the drone contract with the contractor that was out of Tennessee that had the drone training up contract for Ukraine. This is the stuff that Sean and his crew was investigating. And now this stuff is coming to light. Just shout out, huge vindication for my boy. I'll see if I can get him on SitRep or one of these shows so we can talk about that. That is awesome.
We can make room tonight. I have some stuff for tonight, but if he can jump on tonight, that'd be fantastic.
He won't be able to do it today. He's on a commitment right now. But I could probably get him next week.
Okay. Well, next week we'll be in Gart. So.
Oh, that's right. So it'll have to be the following.
Maybe after that. Okay. Real quick, I want to hit a sponsor before we move on, and we're going to be wrapping up here. But I do want to just go back after we hit the sponsor. I do want to go back and highlight one final thing. Guys, when was the last time you actually woke up feeling restored and rested, or got through a day without feeling totally stressed out? Yeah, over 50% of adults said that they'd feel better if they got more sleep, and stress is often the biggest barrier. That's why CBD from CB Distillery makes so much sense. CB Distillery has natural solutions for sleep and stress that can help break that vicious stress-sleep cycle. So many S sounds. And everything from CB Distillery is premium quality, third-party tested, and free from artificial dyes or fillers. They're the source that I trust, and so do 2 million other happy customers. You can shop by benefit, whether you want better sleep, less stress, improved focus, pain relief after workouts, or even something for your pets. It's all right there. I use the pet gummies. Well, I don't personally use them. My dogs use the pet gummies, the pet tinctures, not gummies. I take the gummies. The gummies help out tremendously. Ash kind of turned me on to the OM gummies. Those are pretty good as well. So check them out. If you're ready to start sleeping better, stressing less, and just feeling good again, check out CB Distillery. Visit cbdistillery.com and use promo code Badlands for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com. Promo code Badlands, cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. And we got to fly to get out of here on time. But just real quick, Alpha, the remaining part of that truth from President Trump. This was one of the most fantastic truths I've seen in a long time. Therefore, to add a slight bit of intrigue, but for the good of the nation and the people of our country, I will not approve FISA without the Save America Act going along with it. Not complicated, actually. The Republicans fell into a trap regarding the approval of our great patriot, Jay Clayton. We are canceling the Senate hearing, D&I, today, which was yesterday, and will not be going forward until Jamie McDonald is approved to be the U.S. attorney. In the meantime, Pulte will remain as acting D&I. Thank you for your attention to this matter. We will continue this conversation tonight on SitRep, along with some other conversations calling into question patriotism. I think it's our last SitRep. No, we'll have one more before the 250th. So it is our last before Deadwood. So, because we'll be in DC. We'll be in Deadwood for the next.
Would not be in DC.
We will definitely. I almost went to DC. You know, somebody was like, CannCon, you can't be a pussy and not go to DC because you're. I was like, I don't want to go to DC. Like, that was my dad's plan. And it would have been fun, I'm sure. But we have a huge celebration for 4th of July. Like, Cam and Jackie are coming down for it this year. Again, they came down. JB came down last year. We have a huge party for the 4th. And like, I look forward to that every year. Right. And so to get the 250th, man, you want to do it at home, right? And go to DC where there's going to be all sorts of shenanigans, and nah, man, I'm good on that. It wasn't
fakes.
You know, what's that?
Fake politicians, bro.
Yeah, and just, you know, I don't want any false flags. I don't want to get caught up in anything. You know, it's not that I'm afraid or anything. I'm just smart. I have more fun at home. All right, guys, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already. Again, Gart Deadwood, June 25th through the 28th. If you guys are interested in the golf outing, email me, CannCon@CannCon.net. If you're a rider or a golfer, I need you guys to get with me. I have Saturday as the final day that you can reserve a spot for that. So CannCon@CannCon.net. Shoot me an email with golf as the headline if you're interested, so I can get you down and get you squared away. Badlandsmedia.tv/events for your in-person or virtual tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun. Gart Deadwood is a fantastic. Garts are all fantastic. Gart Deadwood is the best. So check that out. And Alpha, what you got coming up, brother?
Sit rep, like CannCon said, tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then following that, Overwatch and The Guardian. You guys will have fun.
All right. And then we will get out of here with our friend Mike Lindell over at MyPillow. Promo code Badlands.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, MyPillow mattresses and MyPillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard MyPillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.